Welcome everybody, and thank you so much for coming to this webinar. My name is Emma G. I'm really excited to get started on everything we'll be starting on today. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen with you again, and we'll get into this. So if you're here, it's probably because you have a stressed out teenager in your world that, you know, is struggling with being a teenager, let alone having to be a teenager in the face of a worldwide pandemic and everything else that 2020 and 21 has brought with it. You know, while many things have happened, they say that from generation to generation, teenagehood looks very similar, very same. However, as we know, life has definitely changed in a lot of ways, you know, over the last few years. So, you know, back in 1989 was when the internet became a real thing. And of course, back in 1997 was when Messenger, AIM Messenger and Instant Messenger came into play, which I'm sure you remember changed the game quite significantly when it came to stranger danger, when it came to people connecting in a different way than they usually have. You know, we're usually raised, many of us were raised in an age where, you know, personal contact and communication and connection happened because, you know, your friends were in your same neighborhood, or it was really easy to, you know, just get together on a regular basis without having to call ahead first, or having to necessarily get bogged down by working from home, or, you know, emails or anything like that. We literally could pop over for a cup of tea and everything, you know, was a lot more sociable, and so it was more socially acceptable to see each other face to face. Of course, Bebo was released in 2005, which very quickly changed the game for AIM Messenger, as it then had an instant messenger capability, you know, built into that platform, which was then replaced by MySpace, which was a huge platform for musicians and creatives and people who own their own businesses as well. And then of course Facebook came along, and Facebook changed the game significantly, not just taking socialization to the internet, but also taking it to a whole world of needing online validation. We no longer lived in a world where we could get that connection and validation from each other on a person-to-person basis, but now we were looking at the internet for our Facebook likes and Facebook comments, etc. Of course, Instagram came shortly after in 2010, and now we have the emergence of TikTok in 2017. So if you're anything like most people, you might be wondering, oh my gosh, this is the age of technology. No longer are we living in the world of, you know, the generation has changed. We now live in the information age, where everything is changing so significantly, so quickly. And it's hard to keep up, right? It's hard to be ahead of the game for ourselves, let alone be ahead of the game for our children, and making sure that they're safe and supported and connected in a way that honors their growth and development, as opposed to stagnates or even endangers. So how does that turn into, you know, how does that add to teenagehood? As we all know, that we've all been teenagers. We've all struggled with the overarching themes of anxiety and peer pressure and changing bodies and hormone, you know, our hormones going out of control, and trying to test the boundaries with our parents, and having, you know, problem upon problem. Things have just, we've gone from a normal, quote unquote, teenagehood to a really stressful and overwhelming teenagehood, because now we're not just dealing with teenagers in the household or in the school system, but we are having to also navigate what their lives are like online on social platforms. Okay, so what does that mean? What happens as a result? What happens when your child becomes a teenager? When a teenager becomes a teenager? What happens when your teenager becomes anxious? What happens when your teenager becomes depressed? What happens when we kind of lose connection with and the ability to communicate effectively with our teenager? Well, there's a number of things. Our teenagers often become withdrawn. They become overly sensitive. I remember as a teenager, I would often have outbursts of crying for no particular reason other than I felt bad and I didn't know why. We find that our young people often have spin grades at school. Our normally straight A student is now coming home with B's and C's. Hopefully that's the worst of it. They're skipping extracurricular activities, so they're no longer feeling like engaging in sports games or in their dance classes or music classes, or they're avoiding their after-school educational classes as well. They might be lashing out. They might be feeling like, constantly telling you that you don't understand, you don't know what it's like as a teenager, or simple outbursts of aggression for no reason whatsoever. They might be rebelling, which I understand is a little bit complicated in quarantine, but nonetheless, it makes rebelling even more dangerous, really. They might be smoking, they might be, engaging in drugs or in, intimacy with their partners, or simply just sneaking out of home, which is, again, rather dangerous given the current climate of the world. There might be a significant change in appetite. They might be eating a lot more than usual, overeating or, emotionally eating, or they might not be eating anything at all. And that could also be a symbol of body dysmorphia or bulimia or anorexia. They might be feeling fatigued or have low energy, or the opposite, which is what I had, of manic excitement, manic positivity, manic episodes of just really wanting to be all on all the time until they hit a wall and crash. They might be feeling hostile towards you or behaving in a hostile manner towards you, yet not to everybody else. They might have a lack of enthusiasm or motivation, where they once had a lot of enthusiasm for school or for their friends or for their extracurricular activities. But again, they might now be feeling quite the opposite. And of course, the most present one, I guess, is difficulty in concentrating. Where they're no longer able to really focus on any one thing at a time. Okay, so there are many ways to help your teenager thrive. If your teenager is exhibiting any one of the above, the previously mentioned attributes or behaviors, there are many things that you can do for your child, especially considering you're working at home at the moment and you're really, really freaking busy. I know that feeling. Once the quarantine hit in, I feel like everybody's workloads tripled. They were no longer allowed out of the house, so we're all stationed at our computers and trying to get as much done as possible. However, that causes a great deal of anxiety as well in ourselves, so we reach out for other resources to help our children. Therapy is a really popular choice, and obviously a lot of people are doing their therapy online. Self-defense and martial arts classes. I recognize that a lot of self-defense and martial arts schools have now pivoted to online platforms, which has been really great and beneficial for young people, although not everybody is engaging necessarily online. Sports, if there's a solo sport that your kid can get engaged with, something like running or tennis are some great options to help get those endorphins flowing and helping them to, get active and feel good about themselves again. Journal writing is a really fantastic way of helping your teenager thrive, encouraging them to write down their feelings and emotions, because just because they don't feel that they can talk to you, there are a great many benefits to helping get what's in their heads onto paper in a way that is empowering and just helps to unfog their brains. Another one is meditation, which is obviously a difficult sell for a lot of teenagers. However, it is a really beneficial practice when it comes to getting closer to your God or gods, and as a result, gives them a peace of mind, a sense of spiritual belonging, and a spiritual feeding, if you will. And then, of course, art therapy, which is, a great creative outlet for those who are artistically inclined. So there's many ways. I mean, I'm sure you can think of many other ways to help your kid thrive, even though you're at home all the time and stressed yourself and finding it difficult to connect. But the truth is, we are in a pandemic right now. We're isolated, we're overwhelmed, and we're quickly losing connection with each other. Now, when I say we, I'm not just talking about your teenager here. I'm talking about you as well, your families, your at-home communities. We are around each other so much at the moment that it can be really easy to disengage and just want to run away, or, become even further isolated in our bedrooms or away from the rest of the household. So how do we understand, help, and reconnect with our teenagers in a way that is creative and empowering without shutting each other out? Well, first thing, number one, is don't run away from it. Lean into it. It's okay to not be okay. I think we live, especially with the Instagram highlight reel and now TikTok's reels and stories and Snapchat and Facebook, we're always seeing everyone's highlight reel every day. And that can be disconcerting. That further fuels the keeping up with the Joneses mentality that Western civilization tends to have. We want to constantly be on, constantly be perfect, constantly be the success story. But it's important to remember that if you're not having a good day, that's okay. Even better, even more important, I should say, when you're not feeling okay, it gives permission for other people to not feel okay. So it's really important to remember that feelings are normal. Depression, anxiety, stress, overwhelm, and pushing boundaries are normal parts of teenagehood and for being a parent, right? But we can turn these symptoms into superpowers. Are you ready to hear why, or how, rather? Give me 2 seconds. Tea is the elixir of the soul. Okay. So first of all, who the truck am I? My name is Emma G. I am a singer, songwriter, youth worker. As you can see, I used to work for the YMCA back in New Zealand, where I'm originally from. But I've been a musician for much, much longer. I've been working with young people since 2003, yet making music since I was 3 years old. I wrote and recorded my first song when I was 8. Wrote and recorded and released my first song when I was 10, and have, since then released 4 albums, over 25 singles. I've toured the States, I've toured New Zealand, I've played, over in Spain and Australia. I have done a lot to do with music. But why music? Music has been that platform that has helped me to channel my grief, channel my trauma, channel my struggles, channel my overwhelm, channel my stress and anxiety in a way that is both empowering and creative. And as we all know, creativity is one of those great skills that not only allows us to feel in control and in the driver's seat, but also allows us an opportunity to be proud of the process. We often talk about how the journey, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Creativity gives us an enjoyable journey as well as a really enjoyable destination of having completed a fully completed song. So, from my own experiences, having been a songwriter since I was 10 years old, I have written and, processed my feelings around being suicidal, having gotten kicked out of home when I was younger, when I was a teenager. I was 15 years old. It helped me but overcome and understand and heal from experiences like getting raped when I was 15 years old, or getting, kicked out of home, or losing friends to suicide. In fact, the song that you watched, the very first video that I showed you, was a song that I'd written about holding on for your future self, that saying goodbye or ending your life is not the most constructive way of solving a problem. So songwriting has been something that has helped me significantly. And, you know, when my best friend, my surrogate brother, died at the age of 20, I vowed to myself that I never, ever, 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 ever wanted to let someone else down. And, you know, if I could help one young person, just one, hold on for another day, then that is my life complete. So what I did was I established a hard rock band called Static Era, and throughout my life, like I said, have released over 25 singles, including my very first, which was a song called Look Around, a song about equality and environmental awareness and poverty. Then Addicted to a Dream, a song that I wrote about an abusive relationship that I was in, Far Away, about overcoming and turning those struggles into superpowers and realizing how powerful and in control we actually are of our own lives. Dear Me, which was the song you listened to before, is a letter to my future self, reminding me to hold on. Be Brave was another song that I wrote about simply being brave, and Living Proof and Save You From Yourself are other examples of how I have chosen to use songwriting as a tool of alchemy, if you will, being able to turn our trauma, turn our struggle into songs of empowerment, songs of love, songs of self-love, songs of bravery and of strength. But in the face of 2020 and 2021, with the pandemic, isolation, and working from home dragging on, what can you do? There are three things beyond taking your child to therapy or registering for self-defense classes. Not that there's anything wrong with either of those options. In fact, I fully support those options. But there are three other things that I recommend that you can do one-on-one with your child that doesn't take much time, however, can have a significant positive effect on the development and healing of your young person. First things first, creating a safe space. Now, I'm sure you remember as a teenager that, and I certainly remember for myself, it never really felt good talking to my parents about my own struggles. I always felt that there was some kind of judgment or disappointment that I would feel from my mum in particular, because I wasn't my perfect self or my best self. You know, often those relationships that we're closest to, we feel that we need to always be on and always be the perfect student, always be the perfect daughter or son, always be the perfect person in their world. And the minute that we slip, and again, this kind of goes to the, you know, keeping up with the Joneses, the minute that we slip is the minute we feel shame and like we're letting our parents down, or we're letting our community down, or our commitments down, or we're letting ourselves down. And that's embarrassing. That can really come with some very, you know, anxiety inducing and horrible feelings of just not, you know, just not feeling good. So it's really important that you as a parent can allow your young person to feel safe to share with you. In fact, that might look as simple as, okay, son or daughter, for the next 10 minutes, I want you to talk to me, and I want you to understand that there is no judgment here. This is a judgment-free zone. In fact, when I'm working with my teenagers, the very first thing I tell them is all communications between us are judgment-free. I'm here to support, I'm here to guide, I'm here to mentor, but I'm not here to judge or tell you that you're wrong or that you're right. Okay, so creating a safe space is a really beautiful way of, at first, showing up for your young person. That can be difficult, right? We know that can be difficult. So what are some ways that we can create some safe space? Well, one way, my favorite way, in fact, is, again, incorporating meditation into your practice with your teenager. And what I do with them to start off with is, when they're feeling stressed or when they're feeling anxious, to share, get them to, and do this yourself at the same time, get them to tense their toes. Keeping their toes tense the balls of their feet, and then their heels, their ankles, keeping everything tense, their shins and calves, their knees, their thighs and glutes, their stomach, keep everything tense, their chest, their lower back and upper back, shoulders, upper arms, elbows, forearms, hands, fingers, neck, chin, nose and mouth, ears, forehead, and hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and relax. And then that feeling of relaxation can really help them to just slip back into the moment, be in the present. Don't worry about the judgments, don't worry about the future, don't worry about even the past. It's all about living in the here and now. So that's a really basic exercise that I sort of try and do as much as possible with my young people that I work with to help them remember just to be present. Another tool that I use to help them feel safe is to set my alarm for like 30 seconds and laugh. I'm not kidding, like just go for 30 seconds. Pretty soon, of course, your laughter is going to turn real, but force yourself to laugh and allow them the opportunity to laugh with you, obviously, so that you'll soon feed off of each other's laughter and ridiculousness of it all. And soon, you know, those feelings of anxiety, those feelings of judgment, those feelings of fear will be replaced with the happy hormone, you know, the endorphins and the serotonin of laughter. So that's point number 1, create a safe space for your teenager to be able to share with you openly and honestly. And that's super, super quick. Next 2 is word vomit, my favorite. So this kind of ties in with journaling, except that this is a really great exercise for you to do with your teenager at the same time. Now, word vomit, what is word vomit? Word vomit is an opportunity for you and your young person to get everything that's cluttering your brains right now onto paper. Now note that I said you and your teenager at the same time. This is important because you want to make sure that you are leading by example, right? Often when we become teenagers, we're figuring out like how to push the boundaries. We're figuring out how to become our own person, right? And so when we're told what to do, we're less likely to respond in a positive manner. However, if we are doing this alongside somebody, i.e. someone we love, i.e. you, their parent, you'll be able to find that they are more responsive to the exercise because you're doing it together, okay? So word vomit is literally, again, setting the timer on your phone for 5 minutes, maybe playing some whole tones music in the background, something meditative, something stimulating that helps to sort of get the creative juices flowing. And literally for 5 minutes, you are just writing. Write. Doesn't matter what you're writing. You can be writing, I don't know, over and over again. You can be writing about what you had for lunch. You can be writing about your anxieties for the future, although I wouldn't recommend that, however, because we want to be in the present, remember? So it can be anything. You can write anything, but make sure that your teenager is also writing down anything and everything that is on their heart and in their minds. This allows them to declutter everything that's in their head and get everything out onto a piece of paper. Often when we're feeling anxious, when we're feeling depressed, when we're feeling overwhelmed, it's because we've got these little snippets of craziness that is going on, like, oh, I forgot to make myself lunch, or oh, I forgot to do my homework, or I broke up with my partner and I'm feeling crappy, or I'm not good enough, or my body's not good enough, or da-da-da-da. There's so many things that are going through our heads as adults, let alone as teenagers, when they're having to also combat with changing hormones in their bodies as they grow and develop into healthy, happy humans. So again, decluttering the mind is really, really powerful, and doing this with your kid, again, it only takes 5 minutes, is a really empowering way to help them declutter their brains. Okay, the next thing is then turning your struggles into superpowers. Now, this sounds super complicated, but it isn't. You know, they say that there's 2 sides to every story, or there's 2 sides to every coin. Every struggle that we go through in life has a negative and a positive effect. It's like physics, you know, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. So it's the same thing with our struggles. Whatever happens to us, we can respond with in kind, or we can respond to in power. So what I mean by this is, you know, life doesn't happen to us, it happens for us. We don't have to go through it, we can choose to grow through it. For example, from my own experiences, having been in a domestically violent relationship a few years back, I could either continue on with my life with a victim mindset or of I'm not good enough for a happy, healthy relationship, or I could turn this into I am stronger now because I've survived that experience, and I now know the warning signs in future for if I ever become involved in another potentially violent relationship. For your teenagers, that might look like, you know, they are in a toxic friendship, right? Peer pressure, getting in with the wrong crowd, being encouraged to skip school or take drugs or whatever. Toxic relationships are certainly something that teenagers experience on a regular basis. So we can either look at it as, oh, you're a bad child, or oh, I'm a bad child, or we can look at this as, okay, what are the growing points here? What are the pain points? How can we develop? How can we grow? How can we make sure that we are doing better for ourselves or thriving through this? So instead of, you know, being stuck in that toxic relationship, we now empower our young person to have the strength, the sense of self, the sense of self-love, the sense of self-respect and self-confidence to recognize how important they are, recognize how powerful they are, recognize how good they are, and help them find that strength, find that resilience to break those toxic relationships and do better for themselves. Again, this is an opportunity for you as their parent to, you know, lead by example. Remember that by you being vulnerable, you allow them the opportunity and the chance and permission even to also be vulnerable and kind. This doesn't make you any less of a good parent. This doesn't make you any less of an important human. It just means that you're showing them that you are human, that you understand, and you are willing and ready to help them help themselves without judgment. Okay, next up, what can possibly go wrong? I don't know. What could go wrong? You might be thinking to yourself, okay, that sounds great, Emma, but I don't have the time, or my kid is shutting me out and I can't even get into the conversation, let alone engage it fully. Or maybe they think that you're not cool enough to talk to about their problems, or you're not creative enough, or you're exhausted because you're working 3 times as much as you used to be before the pandemic. Or, you know, you're feeling that your own self, your own soul is drained and your cup isn't full, so you don't quite know how to give from your empty cup, or you don't like being vulnerable with your kids. These are all valid reasons why this might be scary for you, or, you know, just not the right thing for you to do. However, when done right, magical things can happen. Magical things. In fact, I hope that this video works. Okay, here we go. So this is, before I play this is an example of 17-year-old Sydney Witt, who really dug deep, really did all the word vomiting, really allowed herself to turn her intrusive thoughts, her negative mindset, her fear, her anxiety, she turned it into something that was empowering. She personified the act of, you know, being anxious. She personified anxiety and ended up writing a response song to her intrusive thoughts to create something that was powerful for her. So here's an example of what she came up with. Sydney Witt. She is an amazing 17-year-old who wasn't afraid to go vulnerable, wasn't afraid to dig deep and remind herself about how powerful she is, but also allow herself the opportunity to feel into those emotions, right? So that is the power of music. That is the power of word dumping. That is the power of having a safe space. That is the power of, turning those struggles into superpowers. However, of course, that might be a little bit difficult for you as a parent. Again, you're busy, you're doing all of the things, you might be overwhelmed and anxious yourself. So I want to offer you the opportunity to work with me and your teenager to help them help themselves through the magic of songwriting. If that sounds like you, head to workwithemmag.com and check out the information there about what I do more in depth and how I can help your young person use the power of songwriting to empower themselves, transform their negativity into positivity, their struggles into superpowers, and their trauma into tunes that are epic and tangible and something that is worth celebrating. So that's it from me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me. Again, my name is Emma G. I am a singer-songwriter, youth empowerment coach, and author of the book, My Life, My Songs, My Healing. And I'm super pumped. Again, thank you so much for being here. I look forward to meeting with you and working with you on a more regular basis. Have a good day.